During today's House of Representatives Subcommittee hearing on the weaponization of the United States government, United States Virgin Islands Representative Stacey Plaskett blasted House Republicans for giving a platform to presidential candidate and vaccine conspiracy theorist Robert Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr.
I know that we talked earlier about a post that Mr. Kennedy had at the beginning of the Biden administration. I just want the record to reflect that that post has not been taken down. So I'm wondering about the extent of censorship when the post is still there. But more importantly, again, I go back to just the fact that we are creating a platform for this kind of discussion, not about the censorship, not about free speech, but the content of some of that speech that we are amplifying in this room. I'm appalled and just so troubled by colleagues that I have to work with, that these are individuals who would bring a witness who's promoted a video that compared the COVID vaccine to the Tuskegee trials. The Tuskegee trials were a very difficult time in Black America, where individuals who were already sick with a disease were then reviewed, experimented on, who already had a disease to see how far that disease went. And making the comparison that manipulates and preys on Black people's feelings about the atrocities of the past in order to prevent them from seeking life-saving vaccines in the present. And knowing that this is dangerous, I cannot also be unaware that this comes from an individual who, by Mr. Roy's introduction, is very smart and understands the implications of this. You know, Mr. Kennedy's own family decries his stance on vaccines, and families disagree on a lot of things. I got family members that, we all disagree, so that doesn't mean anything. But the fact that he has famously sent a request to a party guest that they had to be vaccinated to come to his party. And I'd like to introduce into the record a letter from Louis Silkin, a law firm representing Mr. Kennedy, which states, as he has stated repeatedly, he vaccinated all his children, and I'd like that to be introduced into the record, but tells the Black community and myself, a mother of 5 Black children, that I should really be careful and not necessarily have the same safeguards to protect my family, my children, from a virus that has killed millions of people because I'm Black. There's no secret that this is an amplification of his own platform. I'm not going to talk about the money that's received from the Children's Health Defense, from his anti-vaccine organization that's responsible for a majority of the false information out there about COVID, and the notoriety that's gained from it by manipulating Black and other vulnerable communities to propagate these pseudosciences.
Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett, who has done yeoman's duty on this subcommittee. Of course, she would not go unchallenged, even as she has lived rent-free in the head of the next speaker you will hear, the pride of Troy, Ohio, from the 4th Congressional District, Subcommittee Chairman, and a lot of other things, Jim Jordan, who invited Robert Kennedy Jr. and other witnesses to testify about the supposed censorship of various views by tech companies and the federal government. While Plaskett criticized Kennedy's remarks about COVID-19 being ethnically targeted and a Tuskegee experiment comparison, as we heard, here is how Kennedy responded to Plaskett.
I'd like to just respond briefly to some of the, what I would call defamations that have been just applied to me by the ranking member. I'm happy to talk to you about my opinions on these issues, what you have stated and tried to associate me with through guilt by association is simply inaccurate. Virtually everything, every statement that you just made about me is inaccurate. I have never advised Black Americans not to receive vaccines. At one point you say I'm anti-vax, and that's a bad thing. The other moment you point out that all my children are vaxxed. I'm fully compliant with the vaccine schedule myself, except for COVID. I took flu vaccines for 20 years straight. I have never been anti-vax. I have never told the public avoid vaccination. The only thing I've asked for, and my views are constantly misrepresented, so that the truth of what I believe is not, we're not allowed to have a conversation about that with the American people, which I believe vaccines should be tested with the same rigor as other medicines and medications. You tried to associate me a moment ago with the replacement theory, which is racist.
No, I did not say you
Time
had the
belongs to the
replacement
gentleman
theory.
from-
I said my colleagues.
Time belongs to the gentleman from.
I denounce that theory. It is racist, and I have never endorsed it or had any association with it. Our film on a medical, by the
Medical
way,
apartheid?
Bill Buxton, who is the Black CDC official who ultimately exposed the Tuskegee experiment, tried for years and years to appeal to CDC to stop it for 40 years. Finally, he got relief by walking into my uncle's office in the building next door. He held hearings and ended the experiment. I remember that very well. And to say that I created a film that encourages Blacks not to get adequate medical care is just completely abhorrent.
Don't misuse my words.
It's the witness's time. Do not censor the witness.
I'm not censoring the witness. I'm not censoring the witness. He's still talking.
It's my time, and I've given it to the witness. Do not censor him.
I'm not censoring him.
If the views that you and others have applied to me, I've attributed to me, if they were actually true, I can see why I shouldn't be able to testify here today. Those are not true. These are defamations and malignancies that are used to censor me, to prevent people from listening to the actual things that I'm saying. And I think, ranking member, that we should have a real conversation rather than an exchange of ad hominem attacks. And answer very quickly to your question, the term malinformation was coined to describe information that Facebook and Twitter and the other social media sites understood was true, but that the White House and other federal agencies wanted censored anyway for political reasons because it challenged official orthodoxies. I'll give you one example. I was included in a group called the Disinformation Dozen. And Facebook and others were asked to censor us, which they did. And by the way, my Heck Aaron post, it was taken down. My whole Instagram account with 900,000 people was taken down because of that. Oh, they knew, Facebook knew that the Disinformation Dozen claim, and what they said was the Disinformation Dozen came from this very shady group called the Center for Preventing Digital Hate in England that is funded by dark money that should be looked into. They claim that 65% of the vaccine misinformation on the internet was generated by those 12 people. Facebook itself said that is impossible. That is false information. We know that not to be true. And yet, when the White House asked them to censor this Disinformation Dozen, including me, they did it anyway when they knew it to be untrue.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Well, our beloved Reese, you have been trying to help us understand how weaponized ignorance and misinformation works. What do you make of, I think the young people call it platforming, something like that? And I mean, what did we just see, and how dangerous is it, not dangerous? What's your take on what we just saw, Reese?
Well, first of all, he's full of shit.
And the first thing people want to do when they get caught red-handed is be like, you're lying. I don't know where you got that from. No, she didn't just pull it out of her asshole. She had the receipts, and all you had was bullshit that you could barely get out. So I don't think so. The fact of the matter is that he, along with others, have targeted the Black community with laser-like precision with disinformation. And the reason why it's called disinformation is because it is intentionally either recontextualizing in a way that is misleading, or it is intentionally giving people incorrect information. And what I've said that's really important to understand about disinformation in the past is it's not that it is 100% patently false. What it is that you take something that might have a slither of truth to it, and then you put it in a completely different context, or you put other things around it that make it have a different meaning than if you actually kept it in its entirety in its original context. For instance, when you see a clip that's 15 seconds that looks bad, for instance, well, the 15 seconds before and the 50 seconds after, it might completely change the message of that clip. But if all you're running with is this particularly selectively edited thing, and somebody selectively edited it to manipulate you, that's disinformation. And so the idea that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is some altruistic actor who's out there trying to save the Blacks from vaccines that are harming us, when, like she said, your kids is vaxxed, you want people at your party to be vaxxed. And so you're talking out of one ear, talking out of the side of your mouth, and you're doing something on the other side. And so don't fall for the okie doke. I know that the COVID wars and the vaccine wars was popular. Some people still ain't vaxxed. That's fine. We're over it. Good luck. If you made it this far, I'm sure you're going to be all right. We're not arguing with that shit no more. But at the time, this was a situation where Black people were disproportionately killed from COVID, who were disproportionately sicker from COVID, particularly when it came to Black mothers dying at a disproportionate rate, already bigger than the Black maternal mortality rate. And we were being targeted with this disinformation. The medical apartheid, you've had Black doctors who came out and said that they gave an interview under completely different circumstances, and their words were chopped and screwed to give a different opinion or different view. And so he cannot be trusted. And if you don't take away nothing else I said, this is a person who's trying to run for president of the United States, right? He's not going to get the nomination, but that's fine. Mm-hmm. If the Republicans thought that this person was credible in any kind of way, yes. If the Republicans thought, hey, if this guy got the nomination, he would be good for our country, he would be in opposition to our platform, the Republican Party would not, Jim Jordan's funky ass would not be inviting RFK Jr., giving him the platform of a congressional hearing. They would not, under any circumstances, be doing that if they felt that he was at all a threat to the Republican orthodoxy, to their white nationalism, and to their threat to the Black community and Black humanity. So if you don't take nothing else, you don't have to trust anything that I have to say about the situation, about COVID or the vaccines or whatever. But do you trust the Republicans? Do you think that the Republicans are platforming a person that is in your best interest as opposed to in their best interest?
Absolutely. We're going to go to break in a second, but I want to see if I could just squeeze in maybe a minute for Dr. Brown, because you are, sir, in a state where I think we were all sending prayers to Florida, because they damn sure tried not to even close down for a split second. I know we had a lot of students running down there for spring break and everything else. How dangerous is this, brother? I mean, and as Reese said, for people say, well, I made it through and I'm not sick. I mean, we are still, a lot of Roland Martin Unfiltered is still remote in the wake of COVID. I mean, how do you filter this? And what should we be taking from this, as Reese has kind of laid out the dangers of misinformation?
Yeah, she's done a great job of doing it. And I definitely, my hat is off, and got to thank Congresswoman Plaskett for checking RFK Jr., because we can't let this stuff go unchecked. And she was very careful to say she's not against free speech, but she can't believe the way in which they're giving so much attention to this, right? We really should be checking this, because what this does is it creates a belief system. It creates a culture where people are starting to, where this snowballs and people will start to believe these things, and then start to dismiss the very thing that is killing folks, disproportionately killing Black folks, right? And so I think that to be able to shut that down and call this misinformation right then and there, certainly want to thank her for that. And that's exactly what it is. I think we need to continue to do that, continue to shut this stuff down. No, we're not against free speech, but we want to be able to shut down misinformation when we can.
All right, folks, back to that Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment. For decades, the tobacco industry has deliberately targeted Black communities and kids with marketing for menthol cigarettes. It's had a devastating impact on Black health. Tobacco use claims 45,000 Black lives every year. It's the #1 cause of preventable death. In the 1950s, less than 10% of Black smokers used menthol cigarettes. Today, it's 85%. Ban menthol cigarettes. Save lives.
When you talk about Blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in Black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.